Now let me explain something to you real quick. When he was talking about identity politics and how it's not really the same within the Hispanic community as it is in the Black community, that is actually not true. There is a lot of money to be made and a lot of political clout to gain by playing the identity politics game as a Hispanic man or woman. But what the problem is for Mr. Cruz is that he's a Afro-Latino. So if you're an Afro-Latino, you are not in any way, shape, form, or fashion going to politically speak for the Hispanic community at large. And you see that represented in politics all around you. Just go look at a picture of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Where are the Afro-Latinos at? Recently, Marc Lamont Hill did an interview with a Puerto Rican man by the name of Coleman Cruz Hughes, in which Cruz was there discussing why he feels the descendants of American slavery shouldn't receive reparations. Now, the last time I checked, Marc Lamont Hill was in support of reparations, and if you're an advocate for it, like myself, then I'm not sure why you'd have another individual on your platform, let alone a Puerto Rican man, discussing and advocating against reparations. You see, there are no nuances around or within the reparations discussion, and there's no need to have any type of intellectual debate over it where we have to discuss both sides of the matter, because the data is very clear concerning the fact that reparations are owed and needed. So then why would Marc Lamont Hill have this Puerto Rican man on the Black News Channel to advocate against reparations? Either Marc is deliberately attempting to create confusion around the conversation, or he's being told what to do by his employers at the Black News channels. And if I was a betting man, I'd say he's being told what to do. So then the question becomes, who's running the Black News channel? Well, let's find out. The Black News Channel is an American broadcast television news channel at the University of Miami at Tallahassee, targeting the African American demographic. The channel is based in Tallahassee, Florida, and launched on February 10th, 2020. The station was co-founded by television executive Bob Berlanti, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, Bob Berlanti, and former Congressman J.C. Watts. Watts is its inaugural chairman. Now, if we go down to the bottom at the next highlighted section, one of the chief investors in the network is Jacksonville's Jaguars owner, Shahid Khan. Now let's take a look at Shahid Khan. And Shahid Khan is a Pakistani-American billionaire businessman and a sports tycoon. As of March 2021, Khan's personal net worth is $8 billion. In 2020, he ranked 66th in the Forbes 400 list of richest Americans and the 183rd richest person in the world. So this is where the money came from and continues to come from, a billionaire Pakistani American. Now let's get to the founders. Once again, the station was co-founded by television executive Bob Berlanti and former Congressman J.C. Watts. Well, who is Bob Berlanti? Bob Berlanti is a cable television manager and executive, a former partner with the now defunct Florida News Channel. He is currently the chief executive officer of the Black News Channel. Now let's take a look at this Florida News Channel that he used to run. And the only thing that I want to point out real quick is that it operated from 1998 to 2003. And in 2003, it basically fell apart because nobody was watching it. But what I find very interesting is that I have this article here from 2003 from nexttv.com. Rushing in where Black entertainment television declines to tread, Major Broadcasting Corp says it will launch an urban-skewed 24-hour news network next January. Already, observers are skeptical that NBC, which has struggled to gain distribution for its flagship family values-based entertainment channel, will succeed with a narrowly targeted news channel. Atlanta-based NBC will team with Tallahassee, Florida-based Florida News Channel to create a network that reaches for 25 to 54-year-old African Americans who aren't being served by the youth-targeted Black entertainment television. BET recently decided to scale back its commitment to news and public affairs programming. Initially, NBC will incubate the news service with a 1-hour block of news programming on its entertainment channel beginning in April. The network will then roll out next January, according to Florida News Channel's managing partner, Bob Berlanti. Now, somebody please answer this question for me. Why would a man from the dominant society spend 17 years trying to get a black news channel off the ground? 17 years, from 2003 to 2020. Why? Understand, at that point, it's not about money anymore. It's not about a targeted niche audience. It's about taking power and control over the narratives occurring within black society. It's about controlling the way you think, the way you vote, and the way you spend your money. That is the only reason a man of the dominant society would ever spend almost 2 decades dedicated to trying to create a black news channel. Now, of course, you got to have at least one token brother in the mix to validate the black news channel, and that's where co-founder and former Congressman J.C. Watts come in. I mean, you got to have somebody doing press for you, right? But what I find even more interesting is that 2 months after the official launch of the black news channel, our good friend Bob steps down as CEO. Please hear me clearly. Nobody is spending 17 years of their life building anything just to walk away from it 2 months after it launches, okay? What you're looking at right now is what I call preemptive damage control. It is a really bad look, and it would be really hard to sell a media network called the Black News Channel, where black people are clearly not in control. So before we really get things rolling, I'll step down, wink wink, and we'll put this black guy in my position as the new president and CEO, and now we can properly sell this as black media. Do you see how deceptive all of this is? Look at this article title right here. Black News Channel looks to shake up cable TV news landscape. Black news where? This is one of the most perfect and clear-cut examples of how overrated representation is. Who the media sells to you as the face of the company or the face of the media outlet is versus who actually owns it and who finances it are two completely different things. And the reality is that the average person is only going to look at this article and say, oh wow, look at this black news channel ran by black folks, but will never do their due diligence to see who owns and funds it. So now that we know who's calling the shots and who's making the decisions and who's influencing what actually happens on this channel, let's move back over to Mr. Coleman Cruz Hughes. And I'm not going to spend too much time on him because I'm going to allow him to tell on himself.
Very good questions. The first, no, I did not always think of myself as a black person. When I was growing up, I knew daddy was black and mommy was Puerto Rican. So I viewed myself mathematically as half Puerto Rican, half black, and therefore mixed race. Mm-hmm. I think over time I started calling myself black rather than half Puerto Rican, half black. Not consciously or intentionally, but it just happened. And I think in retrospect, the reason I started doing that seems to me to be because there's much more to be gained in terms of social capital by calling yourself black. You're allowed to, how do I put it? You don't see as much Hispanic identity politics. There's less to be gained from emphasizing the half Puerto Rican side of oneself in the current milieu, in the current environment, in the spaces I run. Being black gets you something that being Hispanic doesn't really. So I think unconsciously I picked up on that and started emphasizing the black half of my genome identity.
This man, who is Hispanic, literally just told you that there is no social capital in him being Hispanic and that it is more profitable for him to market himself as being black. He literally just told you this. Now let me explain something to you real quick. When he was talking about identity politics and how it's not really the same within the Hispanic community as it is in the black community, that is actually not true. There is a lot of money to be made and a lot of political clout to gain by playing the identity politics game as a Hispanic man or woman. But what the problem is for Mr. Cruz is that he's a Afro-Latino. So if you're an Afro-Latino, you are not in any way, shape, form, or fashion going to politically speak for the Hispanic community at large. And you see that represented in politics all around you. Just go look at a picture of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Where are the Afro-Latinos at? Now let's take a moment to stop and think about who is the biggest Hispanic politician out right now. My good friend, AOC. And you all know how much I love AOC, right? Now follow me. AOC is Puerto Rican, just like Coleman Cruz Hughes is Puerto Rican. But Coleman Cruz Hughes isn't Puerto Rican like AOC is Puerto Rican, if you get what I'm saying. You see, for Hispanics, he's just black. So no, you don't get to politically represent us. And because he understands this to be true, but wants to still get into politics, he very consciously made up his mind to say, I'm now going to associate myself with simply being black. And that way I can get into the political game and make all the money in the world. Because trust me, you all know just as well as I know that there is a whole industry out there for black folks that are willing to get up on stage or get in front of a camera or a microphone and be against any and everything that the greater body of black America is in support of. If we're talking about reparations, no, he's not in support of that. You're talking about systemic racism? Oh, there's no such thing as systemic racism. You're talking about the racial wealth gap? Oh, well, you're just not trying hard enough. There is a lot of money in that if you're black. And Mr. Cruz understands that very well. And just because, you should go on ahead and just listen to that interview and listen to his reasons for why the descendants of American slavery shouldn't get reparations. It's one of the worst arguments that I've ever heard in my life. Of course, none of his argument is based on actual data, but is 100% rooted in what I think and how I feel. And if you look at it like this, and then if you think about it like that. Now, here's an example of one of the things that he stated. He said that he doesn't believe that the descendants of American slavery should receive reparations, but that the survivors of Jim Crow should get reparations. The survivors of Jim Crow suffered the way that they did under Jim Crow due to the fact that their parents and grandparents did not receive reparations. And the ripple effect of that is what now has us as a people in the position that we are economically speaking. Because those survivors of Jim Crow are your grandparents. And because of the political and economic violence that they had to deal with, they weren't able to provide the life that they were supposed to provide for their children that then gave birth to you, and now here we are. So how does that make logical sense that we shouldn't give reparations to the descendants of American slavery for slavery, but we should give reparations to the survivors of Jim Crow? That makes no logical sense at all whatsoever. And this is a man that's supposed to be some sort of intellectual. But as you can see, he clearly isn't. He's just running game, making money, and that's what this is all about for him. Look at the deception all around you. You have so-called black news channels that are founded and funded by the dominant society and Pakistanis, yet they're selling it to you as black media. Then you have a Puerto Rican man who identifies with being Hispanic, but is presenting himself as solely being black and identifying as that for profit. My God, we have a battle on our hands, don't we? But I believe in us, and I believe that we can turn this thing around within the next 9 years. So with all that being said, that does it for today's video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. Also, make sure you text tdhiphop to number 33222. That's tdhiphop to number 33222. That way you'll get a direct text notification whenever I release a new video, but it also serves as a protection plan for myself. In case YouTube ever gives this channel the axe, I'll be able to send you a direct link to where you can find me next. All social media links will be pinned in the comment section below. And last but certainly not least, for those of you who have been subscribed to this channel for quite some time now and have a love and appreciation for the work that I put in on this channel as well as on TD News Network, the #1 way you can show your support is through Patreon. For only $3 a month, that will help put me in position to be able to take TD Hip Hop Media off of YouTube. Remember, the goal is not to grow big on YouTube, but to grow independent of YouTube. And also, if you haven't already, please make sure you join the emailing list. That will also be pinned in the comment section below, and that is very vital to going independent because there is no way that I can go independent of YouTube if I cannot take the YouTube audience with me. Thank you for your time, and until the next video, peace.